Hello, I'm Brett Knowles from PM2 Consulting. This short YouTube describes how an effective public-private sector partnership operates with the support of a strategic performance measurement and management solution. The work I'm going to share with you comes from actual client work, but is a consolidation of ideas that we've learned over the last 30 years and 3,000 clients from every segment and from around the world. Our work is widely respected and cited in most books as best practices in the balanced scorecard and strategic management arenas. This case example is about the 407 ETR. This is a road toll network north of Toronto, Ontario, Canada, where the Ontario government privatized the development and toll road execution. The information I'm going to share with you is all publicly available information gleaned from their websites and other presentations that the organization has completed. Step 1 is to capture the organization's strategy. We typically capture the strategy in a concept called the strategy map that outlines the 4 key strategic perspectives, the strategic objectives inside of those, and their relative importance or weighting for this year. Based on that, we can begin to cascade the strategy down to different regions, departments, or brands so that all departments are aligned both in terms of what they need to do and their relative priorities. This framework also supports scenario planning and agile organizations. Based on this, we then need to identify the strategic performance indicators associated with each of those strategic objectives. Most organizations have an abundance of information, and the trick here is to find the best indicators currently available. Within that framework, we can make those strategic objectives turn red, yellow, and green based on how they're performing, and allow the organization to begin to prioritize its decision making. In this example, we can see that, for example, C1, be the best at open access toll road, is red, meaning we're performing significantly behind target. Great customer service is green, we're meeting target, and build and maintain it right is yellow, we're slightly behind target. And the question here is, where should leadership focus their efforts? Perhaps it might be here on the yellow, because maybe a yellow at 15% is more important to us than a red at only 5%. So the strategic priorities allow us to begin to identify where we should be focusing our attention. Obviously, there are many tools that allow us to provide more detail and drill down capability into each of these metrics. But if you don't understand the framework and have the measures correct, there's no point in building the drill down. From there, we need to translate the strategy into operational terms to help everyone in the organization understand how they contribute to success and the activity levels that they need to ensure in order to make sure that their customers are getting what they expect out of the organization. So we should be able to write the strategic objectives down the left of a worksheet and across the top the core processes. And obviously the purpose of the processes is to support the strategic objectives. So for each process we should be able to identify its impact and performance against each strategic objective. Based on the same red, yellow, and green framework, we should be able to identify which strategic objectives are most at risk because the processes are not providing the level of support required to succeed at that strategy. This work we can then tally up and graph to make it clear where it is that we have the biggest performance gaps compared to how we're currently performing. We can also take a look at this not by strategic objective, but by core process. Likewise, we can begin to drill into the data now based on that cause and effect relationship between what's given us that overall strategic performance and the specific strategic objectives which are causing us the performance problems that we're observing. Next, we need to identify how the initiatives or projects we're working on impact those objectives. Not only can we identify the resources consumed, but where they're having an impact so that we can likewise chart them against the strategic objectives. In this case, you can see there's lots of support for shareholder value and not many projects supporting Be the Best Open Access Road. Now remember, those projects are supposed to close those performance gaps we saw, the gold part of these bars. So if we overlay those two graphs, we see that in this situation, like with many of our clients, there are many cases where we've got significant performance gaps, but not enough project focus. Or the opposite, way more project focus than the gap calls for. This misalignment of resources is where budgets and personnel time are misallocated. We also have to use these tools to begin managing better, whether that's understanding the relationship between those strategic priorities and our financial and operational plans, so that as our strategy changes, our plans do, or if we're not achieving our planned numbers, we know what part of our strategy is at risk. Likewise, we should be able to understand how those strategic objectives drill down to the processes and projects like we just described, and then build those back up to the individual accountabilities. So there's a relationship between personal accountability and the overall success of the business. Likewise, we need to modify our management processes so that we're managing strategically, not tactically. So the 5 steps are straightforward. Capture the strategy in a strategy map. Identify the key strategic performance measures. Link those to the processes and projects to make sure they're aligned with strategic intent. Work on modifying our management practices, and most importantly, launch it. There's more detail and many other webinars available on our site if this is of interest. Thank you for your time.